Yes. Hello,
Woohoo! That
everybody.
was fun.
That was fun. That was all your work. Wow, that was
I
awesome.
love to have fun. Why not?
You're
Welcome,
so
everyone,
good at this.
to the Game Changing Work channel. We're always having a lot of fun experimenting our show. And so we were like, you know what? We need to start doing some intro before we actually get started. So, hi, I'm Veronica, and over to my right or left, depending on how you're looking, is Roxana. And today's topic, we're going to talk about personality and performance. And does it really predict a performance on individual or in a collective group of individuals in team settings? It's a very interesting topic. We brought it up probably a couple of times, right, Roxana? But I wanted to revisit it because I found it so interesting, as I put in the description, that documentaries are now being made from it, and so it's a popular thing that's out there today. And what does that really mean? And so I kind of wanted to dive into it and start thinking about this subject in general, because we're so obsessed about really understanding ourselves as a culture, and we take every assessment that's out there. And I'm probably one of them. But what does it all mean when you start to take this data, right? Data is only good as your interpretation and how it's going to be used. Mm-hmm. And that's probably where, I think where we're going to go in this topic is about that subject. And so those of you that are online watching us, hello. If this topic is interesting to you, and please engage and ask your questions as we start to dive into it. And so what is our first part that we wanted to talk about? I know you made some captions here.
I did.
Yeah.
You know me, I love to make captions. And actually, because we talked about it a lot, and because we both discuss about personality and performance and impact and contributions, I thought this is such a big topic that we can start with just a few little things that we need to talk about. And I'm thinking, let's start with the worst predictors of job performance, so that we know what we're looking at.
I love, right? and if any of you challenge, disagree, we love conflict, right? So go ahead and put it in the message if you have other points of view or you want to add on to what we're talking about. So let's go for it.
Exactly. Because you know what? And this builds with experience, I guess. But the common ones are really the first impressions. And the thing is, we all know we are biased no matter what we do. We're going to be biased one way or another, right? And that's what all of those quizzes and personality tests and everything, that's what the information is valuable for, because we get to understand more of ourselves. So knowing that we're going to be biased, it's also important whenever we look at, for instance, bringing someone new on the team, because a first impression is huge when it comes to, I like this person because they're very much like me, because we have so much in common, because we have topics of interest that are similar. Yeah. And then I'm going to like them no matter what they do, no matter what they say. And I'm going to think that they're going to perform well on the job just because they're similar to me one way or another. And we have so much in common, right?
It's a natural inclination. And a lot of times we don't necessarily, even if you try hard not to do it, your natural gravitation pull, as I call it, and it could be an energy thing, right? We talk about energy and how that connects people together, that you are making these decisions. Sometimes what I would say, you have your, subconscious, conscious, that you're doing it at that level and you don't even realize.
Yeah, exactly. It's unconscious bias. If it's not conscious, it's going to be unconscious.
Imagine that. There's a name for it.
Exactly. But And that's why we have all different ways in which we can interview people, talk to them, test them before they join the team, or after they've joined the team when we want to develop them, right? There's all sorts of tools and ways in which we can do that so that we get ourselves out of any kind of assumptions or biases, or try to limit them as much as we can, right? Another common thing is, and I'm curious if any of these happen to people who are watching, like getting trick questions or
That's happened to
brain
me.
teasers. It did? Okay. So
You can
how's
tell
that relevant for job performance?
actually, I mean, in all honesty, I get irritated. It
Right?
automatically creates emotional reaction. Then I have to basically get out of that emotion reaction because I'm like, are they trying to trick me? Like, I'm already
Yeah.
asking myself that question. I'm like, why are they asking this? And then it gets me derailed from my focus and truth as an interviewee. And then I start to kind of go in my head. I'm just being honest. I'm like, what's the point of this? What are you really getting at? And so I was in one of those moods where I was like, what's the point of this? Can you help clarify what you're really trying to understand with this question? I literally had to get clarification. I had to stop it, because I'm like, what's going on here? And
Yeah.
I had to change it. And luckily, I think the person had self-awareness about what I just asked, right? And obviously I asked it in a way that kind of got them to think about, and they pivoted, they shifted, because they knew I knew what they were doing, and two, they knew that like maybe I shouldn't go there, and they
Exactly.
asked a different question. But there have been other instances where I played along and I had no idea like where it landed. Like, have any of you ever been in an interview where you're like, okay, they asked a question, I did it, I didn't question it, but I'm like, I have no idea like what that meant. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
Yeah. And there are so many instances when this happens. And the thing is, especially, I mean, it's in the name, it's a trick question. So I'd be surprised if any of these are building any kind of initial trust, right? That you want to build, especially if you want to bring that person in your team.
Who wants to be
So
tricked?
who wants to be tricked? Exactly. And why would you do it? Why would you trick somebody that you want to then work with and build that relationship with? That's one thing. So or brain teasers, actually, when people use brain teasers, they think that that's kind of a cognitive test that they're asking the other person to perform, but it's not. It's just a brain teaser. There's a limit, and there's a difference between brain teasers for the sake of brain teasers and a cognitive test that actually tells you more about that person's ability and skills and competency to perform on the job, right?
And
A brain teaser is more general.
a brain teaser, when you're in an interview situation and depending on your environment, how many of you have ever done brain teasers just for fun? It
Exactly.
could be conditional to maybe you need to be in a more relaxed setting so you can think, or different aspects of it. So it's like, what's the actual intent? Right. To your point, Roxana, is, are you trying to test cognitive? Because there's other ways to probably do it that you can actually get the same result, right, that you're looking
Yeah.
for. And at all of these first impression, similarity, everything that we're talking about, it's what is your intent is probably the best question to ask first, because most likely there's probably a different approach that you can do in relation to that. So predictors for job performance, even though this is not a personality assessment, it's still assessing, and it can be personality related, right?
Yeah.
First impression, personality.
Exactly.
Similarities between the interviewing candidate, personality. Trick questions could be personality based because the person that's asking it it's based on that person's personality, because maybe the other individual, that's not their thing, but it doesn't mean they're not a good employee to have.
Exactly. Or, as a personality type, maybe they perform better under pressure, under that kind of, and maybe they're more creative and they can get
Exactly.
to answer your brain teasers and trick questions because their creativity boosts under pressure, but that doesn't mean that they're going to perform well on the job. Right.
Yep.
So it really depends on what you want to measure and what you're measuring job performance on. But these are some of the worst predictors of
Yeah.
it.
And again, those of you that are watching, I would love to hear if, or the replay, have you ever been in these situations? This has happened to you. And how did that make you feel? Because we're just putting it all out today. We always go for it, right, on the show. So,
Well, usual. All right.
so what's the next
So
thing?
the next thing, let's look, drum roll, please. Top 3 predictors of job performance, which are we going to be surprised by these 3 predictors of job performance? Really, cognitive ability, growth mindset, conscientiousness, and emotional stability. There are
These are
actually 4.
huge. And it's
Yeah.
funny because we talked about what companies are looking for. We have some past shows, and we brought it up actually in several other shows
Mm-hmm.
about this and the soft skills that companies are looking for, especially when it comes to building a resilient team, collective of people within your company. You need, and great problem solvers, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of these are related.
Exactly. And let's look at this because we started from saying, okay, why does not personality predict job performance? And if you look at these 3 predictors, um, they have something to do with personality, not all of them. And they don't, because they relate to so much more than simply personality. When you look at cognitive ability, that's definitely something that it regardless of the personality, the ability will be there or not, and it will
Correct.
have a certain level or not, right? It really doesn't matter the personality. um, Again, growth mindset, that is something that we can develop over time, and actually we can continuously develop. It's just like emotional intelligence, right? You keep working on it, you keep improving it, and it's part of that part of us that is gonna look for solutions rather than get stuck into the problems. So again, it doesn't have to do with personality, right? Conscientiousness, maybe it has something to do with it, because some personalities, like if you look at let's say introverts and extroverts, that can be something that's possibly more natural or easier to do for introverts, let's say, because they get less distracted by outside forces. But when it
Yeah.
comes to conscientiousness, it's really something that, again, we can develop, something that we can work on. And it relates so well with cognitive ability and the growth
Yeah,
mindset, right?
it's all
They
mindset
go hand in
related.
hand. Exactly. And emotional stability, that goes hand in hand with emotional intelligence, which again, these are skills. If you look at them, these are skills that people can work on and develop over time. So we're
It's
not looking at personality really for job performance. We're looking at skills.
right, and it allows us, going back to that I think this is a very important word. Can't even say the word. Just can't say the word. Is that when I would say 2020 and going into 2021, diversity and inclusion is huge. And a lot of companies, are focusing just even primarily of that, of helping companies develop that and create a diverse and inclusive company. And all of these things that we're talking about is all in line with that intent and goal,
Yeah.
where these are teachable things, but it's more of, I'm a company and where are my needs? And this is why I always talk about outcomes, right? And if I know what my outcomes are, we always want to take in consideration is, yes, we can teach things, but there are certain things that could take time. So if we look at cognitive growth, conscientious emotional stability, a lot of companies will say, you know what, I would rather teach a hard skill,
Yeah,
but I want them to be a learner.
exactly.
Right?
And that's so true, especially in this kind of environment where you don't know where things are going, where you're basically adapting over and over again, right? From 1 minute to the next, because that you have to adapt to the current situation, which changes every day, right? So that is a huge part of all of these top three predictors, which again, they're four, but hey. um, and I'm just creating another caption
And we
here
probably
with
want to,
one more important element for job performance.
and we want to probably differentiate, because when we talk a lot about these, is what you would probably call psychometrics and
Yeah.
personality assessments sit inside those psychometrics, but it's the deviation, if I'm saying this correctly, and any of you correct me if I'm wrong, that of what you're actually looking for, right?
Yeah.
And the ones that we're pointing out in these psychometrics are the ones that's going to help be neutral. I like that word, about your decisioning when it comes
Yeah.
to, does this person have the ability to be a good problem solver, right? Where are they in their state right now? Are they able to, like I was talking about, being a learner, or do they have emotional intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Because a company needs to know, as do we want to put the effort in helping this individual when we already have all the people that exist already in our company that we might have a problem with already, right? Or a challenge. Let me not say that word. An opportunity to help them. So environment kind of leads into what I'm saying is that's extremely important. So we showed the Peter Dill's change logical model, and environment kind of sits in this platform here. We've always talked about, when we looked in the triangle, purpose is up at the top, right? You have the identity, and you can look at this individual and collective both. And then you have the values and belief systems. Then you have behaviors, and then you have actions. But behaviors and actions, we all know, can be different based on your environment. It could even be, I'm in a team and I act differently. All my behaviors or actions are in this team because I'm in a trusting environment. But when I go into another meeting with a bunch of leaders, my behaviors and actions completely change.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? That's one example.
Yeah. Exactly. And it relates. And that's what you see. That's why, again, just talk about personality. It's not going to give you a prediction about the job performance. And it's not just about that, because are we really aligned in our vision or in our values? Or do we align culturally speaking? Right.
Yeah.
And do I feel that it really doesn't matter if what the job description is, or what the job is called, what the role is called. And that's where you see a lot of people performing the same job, the same role in different companies. Their performance is going to be different because the environment is different, because they changed it. And it's a lot of them leave from an environment where they cannot perform, where they can't contribute to the maximum, and they move to an environment that allows them to do just that. And they feel great about it. And that's where their performance absolutely increases.
Yeah. And let's disclaim this. Personality can change.
Yeah.
How many times have spoken to someone and you're like, wow, you're different now?
Yeah.
Because if you start changing your mindset, right, all those other things, it could have a direct correlation to how you think. Your model of the world changes, and it could indirectly change some of your personality. So personality to me is it's very flat to really be judging in a sense of, is this person going to be a performer at my company? And I think a lot of companies are getting better at using other types of data to do that. But let's talk about the types of data. Even though we talked about cognitive, growth mindset and stuff, it still requires the human interaction. We should not be using just data itself without a conversation. Because how many of you have ever filled out something and you put the middle only? Right? You know how like you'll have really like, but not really like, and then I'm not sure, or I'm neutral. So you really want to understand and ask more clarifying questions around the data that you're seeing with that interviewee. So there's so much to unpack where in the process, right, that you're working with, either in professional development or in recruitment, right, the whole talent cycle, is where those conversations are happening when you're using particular assessments. I think that's really important, that people that are using them actually know how to use them properly.
Exactly. And they can do something with them afterwards. Because otherwise, yes, it's a nice thing that we're looking at. But what does it really tell us? And there are different layers. And it's going to be different because we talked about personality assessments and all of the psychometrics and everything. They're going to mean one thing for the individual who takes all of these assessments. And they're going to mean a totally different thing for the organization when they look at data from all of these people in their teams, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to tell you so much more. I mean, for me as an individual, that's nice to know, and it's good for me to know about myself. But then how do I use what I also learn about other people that I work with on a team? That's going to be something that the organization can also encourage me to do, right? And then at the level of the organization, what are we looking at here? And how can we leverage on that? And how can we work on our blind spots?
Yeah. And those of you that may not have seen our past shows, I don't want to make an assumption, is Roxanne and I, we always talk about the Game Changer Index and how that can measure impact. Her and I have an identical profile. Yeah. We have taken, like, our Myers-Briggs wouldn't match up. Our performance index, that's one. We've taken motivation assessments. We've taken a lot of, like, StrengthFinder. We've never landed the same, ever. And so when we think about all the different type assessments, this is actually the one that's not a psychometric. And so we wanted to add this into when we talk about performance, because it's more about making a business decision based on an outcome that you are trying to do. So let's put this in context. When's the last time that you've made a business decision based on even the other assessments that we just mentioned? Cognitive, emotional intelligence, what was the other one? Growth mindset. Have you ever made a business decision based on that assessment? I want to know. This is me being curious. So those of you that are watching right now, have you ever made a business decision on that? I got to know. That's probably a good question, because when we talk about performance and development, is that the best place to actually do those, right? Like, or really understanding more about. But when it comes down to the business decision, what else do you need in order to make it? So that's what I'm very interested in, because if you never made a business decision based on those things, then what did you do?
How are you making your business decisions? That's the secondary question. But I think for this one, and I love it whenever we talk about it. I love it because, again, it really doesn't matter what kind of personality you have, because what this basically, when you look at this, you understand how you make an impact in your role, how you make your best contribution. That's what this tells us. And it's very interesting that you and I landed on the same scores with such different personalities, but basically we have the same impact when at work or in our life, right? The impact is going to be the same. We're game changers with a touch of strategist, right? So that
Yeah.
means that we're driven by new ideas and new ways of doing things differently, and also having that strategic mindset and that strategic approach of looking at what the trends are and what the market is using, and using the stats and really strategizing so that we can, and prioritizing those ideas so we can actually put them in action. So that tells you, when you look at what is it that's going to help me make business decisions, this is going to come on top of everything else that you have, because this eliminates a lot of those biases that we actually talked about at the beginning of the conversation today. When we said, okay, conscious or unconscious, we're going to have a bias. We're going to
Yeah.
be biased one way or another. And just because this is another tool that you have at your disposal that helps you make a business decision, that eliminates that bias, because you look at impact, you don't look at personality, you don't look at age or race or whatever else. You look at how that person is going to impact your results if they join you.
And here's the what does this look like? So let's describe. We're not saying one or the other, and this is when we talk about trying to
Exactly.
remove the personality equation. If you're doing it in that talent cycle and you're bringing someone new in, you
Yeah.
first want to understand what is the outcome that you're trying to do for this particular new employee, this new role, right? You need that clarity.
Yeah.
But while one thing that helps is, let's first get the people that align where they really truly want to put their energy in, so we can see where those are the ones that we know they're going to want to put an energy related to that particular outcome that we need their help with. Then you can start peeling the onion further. Say you have a couple of candidates that are in this impact energy level, then you can go cognitive, emotional intelligence, growth mindset, and say, okay, which one of these candidates are further along so we don't have to do as much coaching. So for us being coaches, if I were to look at this and I'm already in a situation where it's existing employees, or if you're looking in professional development, I would focus my coaching and the way I train centered around that energy, impact energy, because that is where I'm going to get them really passionate and involved in how I teach, how I coach, how I mentor. Hope that's making sense. You can take the other assessments to say, okay, we need to help you with your emotional intelligence, but emotional intelligence, yeah, it might have a blanket of what I would say vanilla,
Yeah.
but I guarantee my emotional intelligence and the way I need to work on it is going to be very different than an implementer.
Yeah. Exactly. It's going to be, because we're going to be different in how we adapt to the situations, in how we think about them, in how we react, and all of that kind of stuff, right? We have different styles. So, okay, let us know if you have ever made a business decision based on personality tests, not just one, but on personality tests in general. That would be interesting to see. And to your point, Veronica, I think it's super important to know what tools you have out there that can help you predict performance better, rather than let yourselves stuck into possible biases and possible missed decisions just because we're stuck on all of the tools that we're using and that are not helpful or not helpful enough at this point, right?
I love having,
Especially for
yeah,
virtual work.
on coaching aspects, when they have this clarity, it changes the conversation,
Yeah.
because this has nothing to do with your deficiency. See, here's the
Hmm.
thing: when you do those other assessments of your cognitive, your growth mindset, and emotional intelligence, you're basically saying what somebody has or doesn't.
Yeah.
And what happens naturally with people when you are telling them about their issues, right? Because it's going to point them out, no matter how we like it or not. And that's one of the things, like when I was getting my brain-based coaching, why they created that emotional threat and reward state, because if I was thinking in that capacity, some of these things could naturally put the person in a protective mode, because you're basically saying, oh, your cognitive ability is low. We got to work on it, right? Like, but how about that conversation being a little bit different, saying, hey, you're an implementer. How can we help you be a better problem solver as an implementer? And start working in that way. Do we even need to even address the low cognitive ability score, is my point, right? Maybe
Exactly.
it's a coaching tool,
Hmm.
but you at least know how to approach it better. And this is what I'm going at, how helpful it is. The way I see it and approach it is, it helps me and helps the other person know where we're going to put our energy into something. And it could look differently, right? It's very customized based on that impact energy. That's just how I've learned about that. How about you, Roxana? Because I mean, it's very different, but once you understand what we're saying, there's a lot of creative approaches that you can use that with.
Yeah, and absolutely, and it's happened to me as well, and to a lot of people that I talk to, right? And they understand, okay, so this is where I make my best impact, and absolutely that resonates with me. Um, but I'm also frustrated that I can't seem to really improve in one area or another. I mean, we forget about that. And as you said, we don't have that conversation, and we should have it more often, where we ask, okay, so what do you feel? What are you frustrated about? And what would you like to improve? And then how can we help? How can you help you do that? What kind of support do you need to be able to do that? It's for me, it's going to be as a game changer. I want to be a better implementer. For an implementer, they're frustrated because they seem to only implement, and then they get into, as they get higher in the organization, maybe they would need some strategic thinking and game changing approaches that they want to develop, and they're frustrated that they end up implementing things, whereas they could do so much more, but they don't have that ability or habit yet, so they want to go there. And it's such an important discussion to have, and part of the development path of people, to be able
Yeah.
to touch on, what are you frustrated about, what would you like to develop on and work with on yourself more.
And
Absolutely.
as we wrap this up, really at the end of the day is, yeah, we're challenging personality being a way you predict performance.
Yeah.
We're challenging only using data without a conversation. And we're opening your eyes to possibilities of a different way to look at it, hopefully
Mhm.
today, on this segment that we aired. So if you guys have any comments, suggestions, or any curious questions that you might have from some of the things that we brought up, because it's all about disruptive thinking, and really start pushing that envelope, because as this show is all about bringing the human to work and really bridging the gap between personal and professional, we want to start having these conversations. We want to bring it up and say, hey, did I not get hired because the way that they're approaching their hiring? right? And
Yep.
is it, and then, people might think it's them, but maybe it's the company's loss in truth. That's what I'm also, maybe vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is, the more that everyone learns how to do this, both, each way, right, goes both ways, what would the world look like?
Yeah, exactly. And how much are you missing out on? That's another
Yes.
that's another question. All right. So, what have you got for us, Veronica?
So for right now, I have a newsletter, and it really ties to all our shows that we're having and happenings around the Game Changing Work show. So sign up, subscribe to that, and you'll get all the events that are happening between things that I'm doing. I even, and then also the Game Changing Work. So I'm pivoting to kind of, really help people see all the shows that we have, or where to go, because we're multi-platform. We're on YouTube. But subscribe, and you always will know what the latest happenings are going on there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm being a game changer right now, and really kind of seeing where things are going with me.
Well, for sure, that's a game changer approach. All right, so for me, it's the Lead for Legacy League, and as we speak, I'm revamping it. As in, people get to unlock a lot of the online courses that are the core content for this management and leadership development program. So apart from our weekly group coaching meetings and mindsetting and strategizing, you can also unlock some of the core content online courses, and also create discussions with the community about what you find out during the course and how to apply it, because that's what we do here in the Lead for Legacy League. We help mid to senior managers and small business CEOs learn about stuff that they can use to lead and manage their teams and also grow their careers, but also how to implement them, because that's the whole point of it. We help you implement what you learn in your job and with your team. So if you want to find out more about the Lead for Legacy League, drop me a message, and I'm happy to tell you more. And anyway, we're gonna have the links in the description.
Yeah, and this is, I can't say where a lot of this stuff usually is more at a executive level of all the things that you're offering. And so it's a very rich package. And the benefit is, when you do some of these things that are internally as your company, you tend to get more convergent conversations versus divergent. And so the beauty is that if you actually meet with people that are outside of your company, you tend to get more diverse perspectives and thoughts that you can take back into your company. So definitely think about that, everyone.
Yeah. All right. So next week we have a guest, Natalie Mayo, and the topic is going to be from fear to fearless, sharing what you really mean at work. Oh, that's an amazing topic.
I'm really looking forward to this. So,
Yeah, me too.
Natalie works with communications and really helping women find their voice. So it's going to be great. She actually, I know from just knowing her, she is somebody that's helped TEDx speakers prepare. She will be interested to hear her backdrop of how she even got to where she is today. So definitely tune in next week with our special guest.
Yeah, awesome. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Anytime that you watch this, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because then you're getting all of the notifications and all of the previous episodes when you can't watch this live. And
we got over 6 months worth of episodes.
Right? So, okay. And come join us next week. Bye for now.
See you guys.